Former President Trump is rallying near Saginaw, Michigan today, speaking for the first time since the judge in his federal election interference case unsealed special counsel's 165-page filing, making new assertions in that case. Trump is in Saginaw County. He won that in 2016, but lost it in 2020. On the Democratic side, Vice President Kamala Harris is in Ripon, Wisconsin. For those who keep track of such things, Ripon is the birthplace of the modern Republican Party. Joining the vice president today in that storied location, former Republican Congresswoman and member of the House GOP leadership at one point, Liz Cheney. Cheney has very recently been a very vocal critic of former President Trump and memorably served on the January 6th Congressional Committee. We start tonight with Nancy Cordes and Robert Costa. Nancy is following Harris in Wisconsin. Robert following Trump in Michigan. Nancy, we'll start with you. It is important to note for the vice president, you can't spend all of your time in Pennsylvania. You must seek votes elsewhere. What is the feel in Wisconsin and the import of Liz Cheney being there?
The import is, Major, that in a race that is this close in battleground states like Wisconsin, like Pennsylvania, if the Harris campaign can successfully pick off even a sliver of Republican voters, that would be enough to help tip the scales. And so they have been trying to emphasize all of the current and former Republican officials, both from the national level to the state level to the local level, who once supported Donald Trump and don't anymore, particularly those officials who are willing to go that extra step like Liz Cheney and actually endorse Kamala Harris for president. So, yes, about a month ago, Liz Cheney said that she was going to vote for Kamala Harris. Yes, she has spent years criticizing Donald Trump, but the fact that she's appearing here in a short while on the stage behind me with Harris is something that the Harris campaign hopes will give permission to, even just a tiny fraction of Republican voters to go ahead and pull the lever for Harris this time. In fact, I spoke a short time ago, Major, to a 20-year sheriff in a nearby county. He's from Iowa County, Wisconsin. His name is Steve Mishek, and he supported Trump back in 2016, but he told me this time around he's going for Harris. Take a listen to why he says he's doing that.
This time, I think it's even more important to vote for the Democratic candidate because there's just so much of a difference between the two candidates, in my opinion.
He told me, Major, that what really concerned him during the Trump years was the steady stream of Trump officials who either got kicked out or left on their own accord, who broke with Donald Trump. He said he felt that that was chaotic. And he said even in his sheriff's office, he wouldn't be able to function if there were new staffers coming and going all the time.
Nancy Cordes, stay with us. Robert Costa, I want to bring you in. Give us a sense of the Trump campaign today and reaction and the impact it believes Jack Smith's most recent filing will have on the trajectory of their campaign and the conversation around it.
Major, great to be with you and Nancy. Behind me is the State University in Saginaw, Michigan. We're here a little bit north of Detroit, Michigan. Just saw former President Donald Trump address a few thousand people in the basketball arena here. The January 6th case, Jack Smith, didn't really come up at all during the case of his remarks. You had former President Donald Trump instead focusing on the economy, talking about border security, talking about Vice President Kamala Harris in a very negative way, called her a liar, said she was not ready for the presidency, mocking Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota, praising his own running mate, J.D. Vance. But you don't see from Trump, at least today, that veering into the January 6th issue, trying to litigate it in the public sphere. That's an example of how the Trump campaign believes that to win these battleground states, it's not going to be fueled by grievance over January 6th, but grievance over the economy among independent, conservative Republican voters.
And Robert, when the president spoke today, it was an interesting dynamic. He talked about Springfield, said, do you want to have this come to you? And the audience booed and said, no, no, no. Kind of a call and response that you've seen at many Trump rallies, and so have I. But it's indicative of what happens oftentimes. There's a narrative that the Trump campaign creates, whether it's true or not, and there are plenty of Republicans in Ohio that say whatever they've said about Springfield, Ohio isn't true, but the audience believes it. Audience has already come up with a fully embraced notion of what the former president is talking to them about and answers right back to him.
Major, your observation is spot on that these issues are being part of the conversation at a national level. But what's intriguing to me as a reporter that here on the ground, whether it's in Michigan or other battleground states, this election isn't being discussed at a granular level by voters. They're not talking about whether Trump is right in his comments on Springfield, Ohio, or what Senator Vance said at a debate. So many voters, especially the Trump supporters I've met, this comes down to they want Trump back. They want Trump back in the White House. They think the country was better under Trump. They have a cultural, economic, political, a fervent connection with Trump. And it really is a basic choice for them. They don't like how they feel under Biden-Harris. They want Trump-Vance as a kind of return to the past, back to the future type choice. And for the Harris campaign, this is complicated because Trump is just stirring up his base, trying to get people who feel a little bit of economic pain to say, why not give Trump another shot? And it's just interesting how so much of the stuff that makes its way to the debate stage, whether it's VP or presidential, doesn't often migrate into these more kitchen table conversations. It's really about, do you like Trump or do you like Harris, for so many of these voters I've met.
Exactly. Robert, thank you. Nancy, I want to ask you a couple of things. How does the Harris campaign, based on your conversations with it, feel about Wisconsin and the polling there? And you know as well as I do, nothing is accidental at this stage of a presidential campaign. The Harris campaign must have some data that suggests appearing with Liz Cheney, not just invoking her name, but having her actually at an event like this has some added value.
It does, because remember, it's not just about Liz Cheney. It is also about her father, the former vice president of the United States, Dick Cheney. There are Republicans out there who still admire Dick Cheney, who still feel allegiance to him. And so it's kind of a two-for-one situation as far as the Harris campaign is concerned. Not only do they remind voters, Republican voters, that Liz Cheney is on their side, but they remind voters that now Vice President Cheney, and keep in mind, Vice President Cheney and Liz Cheney are extremely conservative. Liz Cheney, as you recall from covering her on Capitol Hill, she was a deeply conservative Republican. She simply broke with Donald Trump and with the party over Trump's behavior before January 6th and certainly during January 6th as well. And so I anticipate that here in Ripon, we will hear her make the case that Donald Trump is not a true conservative, that he is not a true Republican, that a lot of his positions veer from conservative orthodoxy, and that a vote against him is not a betrayal of the Republican Party. In fact, it's a way to turn the page and return to the values that Republicans like her and like her father have supported for generations.
And Robert, very quickly on this Cheney dynamic, I'm sure the Trump campaign would say, go ahead, Liz Cheney, go ahead, Dick Cheney. Former President Trump is remaking the Republican Party, and it's your fault for not recognizing the new Republican Party he's creating.
And the Cheney issue is now bigger than just the question of whether traditional Republicans are going to give Vice President Harris a shot. This comes right after Special Counsel Jack Smith's filing about his January 6th case. So for the Harris campaign, it's potentially optimal timing if they want to hammer that message on conduct and character related to former President Trump before and after January 6th. Cheney will help underscore that with her appearance with the vice president. At the same time, I've known Congresswoman Cheney for a long time, covered her, interviewed her, and we all know her role on January 6th, but she's also a traditional hawk when it comes to foreign policy. So for those Republicans who have an aversion to how Senator Vance and Trump have articulated their positions on foreign policy, especially on Ukraine, she could be there as someone who says, hey, even if you don't like the Democrats on abortion rights, if you don't like the Democrats on taxes, give them a chance on foreign policy. And in this election, every vote matters. And so it might be a handful of votes here or there, but that handful could be important in certain states.
Could be decisive indeed. On the road for us, Nancy Cordes and Robert Costa. As always, we thank you.